I understand that as a public figure, my job means that I will be criticized. Giggity giggity. And I am fine with that. Bull crap, okay? I don't care if you talk about me. I'm outie. 500. I don't care if everyone talks about me. Hold up. That's fine. Go ahead and talk about me. That's a negative. I talk about people all the time. Feels very selfish. You don't have to like me. No. You don't have to like what I do. I was digging through archives, you guys. You can monetize the hell out of me. I don't care. I see what you're doing there. Talk about me. A lot of the things that I do report on this channel actually are the facts. Oh my God. Hey guys. It's Friday afternoon and I was like, okay, I was gonna do another recording, or were we gonna do a live stream? And I started thinking about some stuff that's been going on that I have not been telling you about. And no, this does not directly relate to me, but I wanted to sort of talk through, you guys, because this, hold on a second. This week has been insanity. Okay. So one of the benefits, obviously, when you have a platform is that you have people that love to follow and listen, and they tune in and they want to be a part of your community, and they leave you messages, and there's amazing benefits of being a public figure and having an influence on the wider web, right? And there's all kinds of different influencers. There's YouTubers, there's people that are on Instagram, there are reality TV people, there are people that are simply they do blogging on lifestyle, on travel. Instagram is filled with them. YouTube is filled with them. There's a lot of different ways that you can get yourself sort of out there in the public. And the benefit is, obviously, you get the financial benefits of having the platform. So you can get brand deals, you can get endorsements, you can have monetized content on partnerships like on YouTube. So there's a lot of perks to the kinds of work, for instance, I do. Now, I'm not by any means a large YouTuber. This channel just hit over 100,000 subscribers not too long ago. And I would say that in the grand scheme of YouTube, this channel is still relatively small. But anytime anyone is out in the public eye, there is this darker side of the world where fans become obsessed. And they're not fans, but they're simply watching your every move because of something you've either done or something you've said or something they perceive to know or believe about you. And I've noticed, as I've been watching this on Twitter, that this happens to a lot of people on this platform. I'm sorry if my swallowing and clicking is bothering you. I'm trying to do multiple things at the same time. I think whoever is upset about the swallowing and clicking needs to evaluate their current status in the lifetimes these days. Okay. So one of the benefits, obviously, is you get a lot of, you can make money, you can use your platform for whatever it is that you want. But the downside is that you get people that start tracking you and following you, and nobody is immune to this. This happens across the board to all kinds of people, from reality TV to celebrities. I mean, didn't Taylor Swift have someone literally sleeping in her bed? You know what I mean? Fans become obsessive. They start becoming connected. They start standing. They become fanatical. And then, so you get the fanatical fans who are can be equally as scary as those that fanatically hate people, right? And I was thinking about this only because of I've been going through stuff, but I'm not here to talk about me, because I wanted to actually talk to you about something that I've been dealing with this week. So earlier this week, or maybe late last week, I was talking to you about how like this petition had been started on Twitter and it was being shared all over the place, and it was related to one of the girls from Teen Mom. And I'm only bringing this up because A, like I brought the story up to begin with, but B, the levels of which people will go to sort of smear people and to dismantle their lives and to cause real life consequences for people. It's kind of mind-boggling, and I spent literally all week trying to sort through like what was right and what was wrong. And I was telling, if you don't know, I'm friends with Lindsie Krusty, and she and I were trying to figure out like what's going on. And Lindsie Krusty she was previously on the reality show Krusty Knows Best. She's the daughter of Todd Krusty, who is currently facing indictments in federal court. He also stars on Krusty Knows Best. She is not on the show anymore. They are estranged. I met her when I started covering her dad's arrest, and then she and I actually became friends just because we have a lot of commonalities. We have we have very similar personalities. We have very similar morals. We have very similar beliefs. And we have very similar like takes on life. And so sometimes when when you meet someone like that, it's like, okay, cool. So obviously having that insight, I was given sort of a sneak peek into something that was going on with Kail, her podcast host. Now, a lot of people from Teen Mom OG or 2 hate Kailyn Lowry. And if you hate her, hey, everyone needs to have someone to hate. But, there's this thing going on right now where we're trying to cancel everyone for saying things in their past and trying to connect them to, racism or whatever, and people are starting to dig through different, this all started because people started, they fired Taylor Selfridge on Teen Mom OG after everything happened with George Floyd. So there's this huge shift, and networks are dumping people that have said things and done things on social media. And so people start digging into hers, and then I start seeing on Twitter, there's all of these comments about Kail. So I wasn't like seeking it out. It just sort of like popped up. And then I start seeing that this person is literally like spamming all these comments about Kail. And there's this petition that gets started. Okay. And it's all of these like allegations about her that she's done and said these very terrible things to her, the father of her child, Lux, and the soon to be like baby that she's pregnant with, the little boy that she'll be having. I don't even know. She's going to probably give birth in the next couple months. And then Lindsie and Kail host a podcast together, which actually returned yesterday, called Coffee Convos. And Kail and Lindsie are extremely different people. So if you're not familiar with Kailyn is sort of this, she's not type A. She's kind of like all over the place. She'll have 4 children. She comes from sort of a chaotic upbringing at her own sort of description. She has this sort of estranged relationship with her mother. She has a lot of childhood issues that she's dealt with. She's put her life out on TV for the last 10 years. She's had all of her worst moments filmed, including her very explosive bursts at the fathers of her children. She has admitted to being involved in DV as the person doing it and as also the person receiving it. So she has had altercations with one of her fathers, Javi, on TV. She's had some issues with some of her fathers, Joe, on TV. And then most recently, last October, she and Chris, the father of her baby, Lux, and the one that she's currently pregnant with, got into an altercation, and he actually got arrested. And now they have this order of protection. And so she has this checkered past. And then Lindsie she grew up sort of affluent with her father. Her father's now facing all of these charges for fraud, for theft, for tax evasion. And so she comes from a world of like luxury, but because of how she grew up, she also grew up like with her family being sort of like, her mother was sort of alienated from her by her father. So they're very different people. Lindsay's very meticulous and type A and organized, and Kaylin is more like go with the flow and I don't care about it and I don't plan. And their podcast is very much a play on how incredibly different they are. So welcome so much, Kiki, for becoming a member. So if you follow my channel, I'm critical of a lot of these teen moms. I'm also equally like, I will celebrate them when they make choices. Like my job is not to be like their best friends. My job is not to be anyone's best friend. My job is really to just sort of report. And it's very, very rare that I actually like become friends with people that I cover. Lindsie literally is like the only person really that I would call a friend that I've covered, and Amy Duggar. But outside of that, it's not like this common thing that happens in my life. So I start getting like notified on Twitter, right, that this person is like spamming them. And this person has been in my DMs and for like 11 months or so has been sending me messages about both Kail and Lindsie. And at first, I was completely ignoring it because some of the information they were telling me about Lindsie was so off base. I was like, that's not true. And I could literally send a message to Lindsie and be like, okay, this person says this about you. Can you tell me if this is true? All right. So for the most part, like I've interacted with this person and I've had to like give them information to get them to tell me stuff. But this sort of came to a head this past week because this person reaches out to me out of nowhere. I hadn't talked to them in a very long time. And they are like, there's going to be audio coming out. It's coming out. It proves what I've said all along about Kaylin. It is every single thing that she's ever done. It is coming out. And I was like, okay, what's coming out? Audio and video. And that was like 2 weeks ago. Okay. And I was like, okay, cool. And she's like, and I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to tell Grace Report. And I said, cool, just let me know if it comes out, So then I start looking at it. I'm just going to show you the Twitter account. So this is the account. And I want to just sort of show you, they started this petition on change.org to get her to be like, don't support Kail Lowry and Lindsie Chrisley, Black Fathers Matter. And then you can just see that she's like almost always tweeting about Kail. Like everything is about Kaylin. This entire page is about Kaylin. So she spends like all of her time on this page literally talking about Kaylin. So, she puts out this change.org thing and she makes these humongous claims. And I'm the kind of person where it was like, okay, when you see the allegation, okay, let's verify it, right? So the claim is that she knows and connected to people that are friends with Kail who have told her about audio and video. And she has seen audio and video of Kail and Chris getting into an argument with Kail spitting on him, calling him the N-word, and yelling and screaming. She also claims to have seen text messages of Kail talking crap about Lindsie, talking badly about Leah, talking poorly about other cast members, really just being nasty and human, like nasty. And when you're trying to verify the, I guess, legitimacy of the source, like you have to sometimes like give up information and sort of give them like the sense that like you guys are like in a relation, like a trusting relationship. And so I'm trying to sort of give her some information and see like what does she know and how does she know it, and I'm trying to figure out, does she actually have a contact, does she not? And so she contacts me out of the blue and she's like, oh, this audio and videos comes out, then this change.org petition comes out. So I'll show you that. And I had to actually, at one point, so she creates this petition on change.org. Whoops. which basically has like this all about Kaylin and the podcast. And she has like all of these allegations about her that are seriously over, like, she talks about stuff that happened in 2014 on the show, and then it's this part: in fall of 2019, Kaylin and Chris Lopez were overheard by 2 family members. She's referring to him as the N-word. You'll never see your son again. There's audio of her doing this, and then it goes on about how she's like got ethnic children and she's keeping them away from him. She starts tweeting about Kate, like how Cheyenne calls them out. Don't support coffee combos. Kaylin has white privilege. And, it's weird because, her updates become, it starts out where you're like, okay, there could literally be some truth to this, maybe. But she started getting a little bit crazy because in one of her updates, she starts saying that Lindsie is racist. So she starts making these claims, right? So she starts like making these claims about Lindsie, and I'm just see if I can find the update. So in the update, she actually says that Lindsie used the podcast as a platform to justify DV against Black and Latino men. That Lindsie are both basically racists. And her arguments against Lindsie are, Lindsie added, now that there are more ways to provide evidence of DV, there are more people willing to disclose what's happened to them. She feels sorry for victims of DV, but she has no empathy for Joe and Javi. So, making a lot of assumptions, claiming that, Lindsie is this terrible person that obviously hates any partner that's connected to her. And she starts saying that, Lindsay's never spoken out about BLM, Black Lives Matter. She doesn't care about people. She assimilates and she's white privilege and all of this stuff, right? And I'm like, okay, this is completely crazy because I've never heard her talk about this. I've never heard her say that. She's definitely not a racist at all. Lindsay's not, 100%. So I'm sitting here going, okay, it started out where it would be like, okay, it's about Kail. And then it starts out with like it's stuff about Lindsie. And I'm like, this isn't even who Lindsie is. I can verify that because I talk to her all the time. So then I'm like, okay, we have to figure out if this is real or not. So this thing starts getting like plastered, and everyone on Twitter is resharing this, and there's a group of people that are like retweeting it and like spamming it under all these people's comments. And I start getting like DMs from this person saying, okay, we're going to release it. And then it comes to a head, and I'm like, we're waiting for it to be released. One day goes by, nothing happens. And I keep asking. And anytime I ask, I'm like, well, you said it was going to be released. Well, I'm not releasing it. Girls are releasing it. Okay, well, you said it was going to be released. No, I didn't say I was releasing it. They're releasing it. And then I start talking to them about how the laws work, right? So if you're going to release content of like a recorded call of them fighting, and it's either not Kail or Chris releasing it, it's illegal. And then she's like, oh, I'm not releasing it. People that were there are releasing it, and they have attorneys who've told them it's okay to release it. And then they're like, well, now they're going to release it after the podcast. So then she goes and listens to the podcast from yesterday, where they end up talking about Janelle Evans and her husband, David Eason, who, by the way, are back together. And then she says, well, now we're not going to release it because they dragged Janelle and they didn't even talk about racism. And they didn't even record that podcast. It was spliced together and it was pre-recorded, and they didn't even do any new content. This is hilarious. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, I literally remember when they recorded that, because it was like they've recorded, I think, 2 episodes total. And they're behind because they recorded that weeks and weeks and weeks ago. So they're not like they're not like recording the same week and dropping it the same week. So when they recorded it, this is what was going on. So what had George Floyd stuff hadn't even happened yet. So then she's like, well, we're not going to release it. So finally, after a while of going back and forth and trying to figure things out and telling her, like, if you have this stuff, this is literally a felony and they're going to press charges against you. Suddenly, they're not releasing it. She's going to, like, just let them squirm, and I just need to let the truth, show the truth out there. And then suddenly I become a racist for literally, like, not believing what she says. And it started to get me thinking. I started looking through her. She had an original Twitter, and she admits to me she's literally been targeting Kail for 2 years. 2 years. This person has been following her on Twitter, retweeting, spamming anyone that talks about Kail, disseminating this information, writing these change.org petitions as though it's fact. There's no facts in what she's reporting because there's no audio or video that anyone knows about. And people that, like, you know, yeah. So, over time, I'm like, this is insane. This person is literally targeting Kail, has developed this she's developed this narrative about who Kail is, regardless of facts or truth. And she may have people that she speaks to that know Kail, but she doesn't have actual facts or proof. Because anytime she's like, well, I have receipts, but she's never shown me a single receipt. Like, one thing she told me was that Kail and Lindsie filmed at this hotel in Anaheim. And I said to Lindsie, have you been to this hotel in Anaheim? And Lindsay's like, I've never been to Anaheim. So she's supposedly, the receipt is that she's seen pictures of her at this hotel, which she's never been at. Her other thing was she's seen text messages of, you know, her saying bad things about people, but never has shown me text messages. She's heard audio, but she's never shown me audio. And I started to think about this. Like, these are sort of the common traits in people that do this kind of trolling online. When you call them out, they shift the goalposts. So if you say, well, I need proof about this, they'd be like, you're not hearing me right. I showed you this. But it's literally something public. So she'd post a photo of Kail from Teen Mom 6 years ago. And I started thinking about, like, how the mindsets of these people work. So this person has literally been stalking Kail online for 2 years, spreading these lies about her under the guise of an advocate of something, whether it's, you know, today it's because of the fact that she has children that are biracial and that she's not nice to the fathers of her children. Then a month ago when stuff was trending with Amber, it was all about, DV, and she's just as bad as Amber. And I'm like, this is, yeah, and it's just like Jeffree Star. Exactly. It's like anytime someone tells you that they have receipts and they don't show them to you and they can't prove it or verify it or demonstrate to you what it is that they're saying. Like, if someone tells you something about someone and they can't verify it either through direct sources or through multiple people verifying the same story or through, like, text messages, photos, some sort of level of proof that you know what you're talking about, but then they keep dangling that proof in front of you, it becomes this game. Jeffree Star does it all the time. I have so many receipts. Just wait. And then nothing is like no receipts. He drops massive allegations against people and then doesn't provide proof. And then people make these humongous decisions based on that. Do I feel biased due to the friendship? No. Because when I started talking to Lindsie, because I was going to Lindsie to get verification, Lindsie knew that I was being objective. So Lindsie and I don't always agree on things. She knows I have a job. She knows that this is like, I'm a vlogger that talks about current topics and trending topics. She was not like of the opinion that I wanted it to be either way. I don't always support Kail. I always try to remain neutral. If I don't agree with something with Kail, like say what she believes about vaccines, I will say something. But, you know, I don't disagree with all of her choices. You know what I mean? Like, just because she does one thing that I don't like doesn't mean I don't like the totality of her. You know what I mean? So just because I'm looking at the story, it doesn't mean that I automatically want it to be true. I'm just trying to figure out if it's true. Because in this day and age, those kinds of allegations can actually destroy a career. And so if you want that information to be put out there, and the backlash has been so immense for her, I was like, well, we need to actually look at what's being put out there and if there is any substantiating proof that proves this. And I was, after over a week of all of that, could not find nothing. I couldn't find a single thing that proved any of that. Could not find nothing. I couldn't find a single thing that proved any of the things that she has written in that petition. So I'm going to take up for Katie here. Katie isn't a huge Kail fan by any means, and she's basically defending her by being honest. So objectivity is key here, and that's what we're getting. Yeah. Like, I'm not a humongous fan of Kail, but I'm not going to drag her over something that's false, right? So I'm not going to sit there and go, Kail said these things. I reported, as did a lot of media outlets, that this petition was started. I reported that it was put out there, and now I'm telling you there's literally no proof that any of these things that are in here are at all true. And despite my attempts to get any sort of evidence from this person over weeks, I could not get a single shred of evidence suggesting that this was like what it was. Does Kail have a history of saying things that might be insensitive? Yeah. Does she have some friends that might be like on the edge of conservative, almost slightly, pushing, the line with being kind of sort of anti-friendly to racial stuff, maybe. But I don't see anything like on her Twitter specifically. There was some resharing of other people saying the N-word, but it was like memes and that kind of stuff, which you shouldn't reshare. There was a tweet from 2016 where her friend said it, but not her. But I didn't see anywhere where she said it. You hated Mackenzie until she gave you an interview. Are you the same with Kail? I've never spoken to Kail. I've never spoken to Kail in my entire life. I've never had a conversation with Kail, so I'm not defending Kail. I'm saying this allegation is not true, and she's being railroaded by this person with unfactual statements. I hope that makes sense. And I wouldn't say that I hated Mackenzie. Was I snarky about Mackenzie? Did I call her, the stage 5 clinger or Klingon. Yeah, because on TV, that's how it's portrayed. But I also know like the way things are portrayed on reality TV is not factual. And so when I'm putting out like snarky content, you have to take it with a grain of salt. It's for entertainment purposes. So did I ever hate Mackenzie? No. Do I think that what people tell me is 100% true? No. Now, if these allegations were proven to be true, I would report it. So if something does come out, like say they do these whole dives into her specific social media, which is happening. If they dive into it and it's true and they find something, I would report that. I'm coming back here and saying what's being reported here is not true because there's literally no evidence. If evidence were to materialize, I would consider it. I hope that makes sense. I don't try to hate anyone, to be honest. Okay, so this is what's happening to Kail. And I know it happens to a lot of people. Like I've seen the same sort of vitriol behavior on Janelle Evans, which, listen, like I'm just giving you examples that I can think of off the top of my head. Like every single time Janelle gets some sort of brand sponsorship, people start contacting her and going real life. And this person with Kail is like literally trying to interfere in Kail's real life. And, there's this line where I'm sitting here going like, what is it with these people that they get so much hate and they get so obsessed with one single person that their entire sort of identity online becomes that person? Like, what is it about Kail that makes that person dedicate all of her time to her? Why is Kail the target? Why is there's accounts that do similar things to Janelle? It always makes me wonder, like, I would love to talk to Dr. Grande about the psychological profile of a online trolling stalker, right? And evidence, yes. Lorianne says we all have different opinions and they can change unless you aren't human. Correct. And I'm not expecting everyone to... love her or hate her. Like, I know people hate her. Yeah, it felt like a personal vendetta. Because the way that it was being described was, I kept trying to get to the objectivity of why, if this stuff existed and if it was friends of hers that wanted to put it out, why would they put that out? What's the motive? What's the objective? And if they have all of these things that are like petty, like saying her talking about Lindsie or her talking about Leah, what's the purpose of putting that out other than revenge? I don't know. If it's something major, like what they're saying, I could understand. But some of the stuff that they were saying was going to be released was really petty stuff. Like she said something nasty about Leah. She was mean about Lindsie. She laughed about this person. Like, what's the point in putting that out? I don't understand that. Sounds like this person is jealous of Kail. Yeah, I'm not sure. I've tried to figure out, like, they keep saying they have a job, that they're doing this for a client, that they're an advocate for children and families, that this is their business, that they have a team. They have a team. That's what they keep saying. We have a team that's doing this. And I'm like, a team. Interesting. Yes, she's a troll. So they have been trying to figure out, might be someone that personally knows her or one of her real life enemies. It could be It could be David. Who knows? It's somebody who really just does not like Kail. And every person that's online gets someone like this eventually, right? Everyone gets groups that, retweet or spam tweet or send messages or call your homes. It's like it happens to a lot of people. It's not like I was reading a YouTuber, Repzilla or something, I think, and he was talking about this kid that's literally been like interfering in his real life and sending out photos of him and his kids, and it happens to the best of us, I guess. If they were an advocate for children, why don't they offer constructive support and not rip someone apart? That was sort of my thing too, was like, if you're an advocate, why are you saying she's a nasty, vile human being that needs to be held accountable? That to me doesn't sound like an advocate. To me, an advocate would be like, say, there was this podcast that Lindsie and Kail did where they talked about Kail's history with DV and what she's done to partners like Hobby. And Kail not wanting it out there because she doesn't like to see that side of her, and sort of Lindsie trying to hold her accountable, saying like, if people see this and you're honest about it, it can only help your growth, not condoning the behavior, but also being like, you can't erase your past, and if you want to get better, you have to actually take those steps to be better. That would be how you would help someone. Groups that are giving you free real estate in their heads. Yes. Microaggression, a new word for the day. Many of these people are like that. Thanks for all you do. Thank you, Melissa, for your super chat. Repsion. Okay. Let's not use the D word. Okay. Yeah, so an advocate, whether, say they're advocating for Chris, an advocate wouldn't try to destroy the relationship between the two parents. I think about how Child and Family Services, typically their entire purpose is reunification and helping families to become stronger by providing resources to bridge gaps, to deal with anger, to manage, communication, to deal with frustration, to deal with violence. That's what an advocate would do. An advocate would help Kaylin, if that's the case of the target, seek help for the issues in which she's dealing with, not necessarily say we need to fire her and take away her job and take away all of her, businesses because she's an entitled brat and I hate her guts. People have been really nasty to Kail about what she's experienced with Chris because of the double standard, 100%. So I'm not by any means excusing anything that she's said or done. I'm just sort of telling you this is... Mike Does channel was up yesterday and down today. I have not noticed that. How do I feel about Kail taking advantage of the judicial system whenever she doesn't get her way? Can you talk about that, especially since you are an advocate for POC? I don't really know the details about... I know the one with Chris, and that involved a physical altercation where he actually got physical with her. I don't know the stuff about Javi and Joe, so I don't... if she's doing that, I don't agree with it. But, I don't know what's true. I know she did one on Hobby, which I think is kind of ridiculous. I think she did that as a petty thing, which is really, you shouldn't use a restraining order for petty purposes. Here's to breathing regularly and taking a drink of water as necessary. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you. But yeah, with all of that being said, cancel culture is very toxic. And Kail can be mean. Kail can be bullyish. She can say very inappropriate things. In fact, I actually got very irritated with Kail for how she went after Janelle, even though Janelle is not a very nice person either to Kail, and Janelle can be equally as nasty. There are times when I think the drama that they create online is just so unnecessary and mean-spirited, but that's just me. But I've been pushing to cancel Kail. No, I haven't been pushing to cancel Kail. I've literally been trying to find a story. So I saw that stuff about Kail. So I said, if this is true, it was more of in defense of Taylor when I said that, because Taylor was canceled for things that MTV had already addressed. So it was pointing out the hypocrisy. Like, are you going to cancel Taylor because of things you've already addressed and you know she's said in the past and you've allowed her to work through? Then what about all the other people on this channel? And then all of this stuff starts coming out about Kail, and then I'm following the story. And I've never once said Kail shouldn't have a job. I've never said that at all. I have not, I definitely am not pro cancel culture. So, I have not checked Micah's channel either. If there's not any other questions, that was... And everyone has very strong opinions about her. I get it. I get it. But I also want to remind you that everyone's human. Everyone makes mistakes. All of us are capable of growth. All of us are capable of change. And if we truly want to end the division and the racial tension, we have to be willing to allow people to grow, to own up to their mistakes, to realize their failures, to realize their ignorance, and to teach them how to speak better, how to treat people better, to understand how their behavior affects other people. But if you immediately cancel them and say, you don't deserve anything, you're a terrible person because of what you said, how does that teach them how to be better? Advocates change systems and educate people, not judge. Do I think men and women should be treated equally when it comes to paying child support? I think all people should be treated equally when it comes to child support. I think everyone should be treated differently. So my point is, you don't have to like everything that she does. You don't have to even like her. But when you have people literally going off and making things up, that's when it becomes an issue of, this isn't even being objective. This isn't even being helpful. This is literally like trolling and hurting people that you're mad at, that you hate for some reason. And you might have a valid reason for hating that person. I still think Micah should be canceled. Yeah, I don't know. I just, What about the Duggars? I don't think the Duggars should be on air, but that's because of criminal behavior. That has nothing to do. There's some people that literally, the problem with cancel culture, and Liam McVoy did a thing about this, is there's really truly people that should be removed from platforms based on very bad behavior, and then there's just people that are problematic. And so there are people committing crimes that should be canceled, right? There are people that are abusing things that should be canceled. They should not have a platform because of what they're doing that's causing and inflicting pain or criminal. And then there's other people that are just labeled as problematic, which is pretty much everyone on YouTube. This is just to piss the haters off. Thank you. Jean Colbert, thank you so much. You love my dog. Thank you. So again, I'm not here to judge. I was able to get everything removed from the videos. I was able to get everything removed from the videos for Micah's so that it all finally got taken care of. Duggars are doing illegal things. They should not have a platform. So, like, do we cancel someone because they were petty and said something mean about a friend? No. Do we cancel someone who is committing crimes that are really, really bad against the community or against children or against women? Yes, they should be canceled. Like, there's legitimate reasons for people to be canceled. The problem is that cancel culture is not about canceling those people. It's literally about canceling anyone for any perceived injustice. Thank you, Jacobs and Bastions, and thank you, Rose Santini, for your super chats. Okay, so before we go, Shelby, thank you for becoming a member. Before we go, one thing, we are doing a sale in the merch store. So maybe Jesse can share you a link. And we have a promo code. So if you are interested in purchasing any of the merch that is available on our channel, which you can see down in the description box below, it's like you can see all the different merch. We're doing 10% off until the end of June. And we're doing, you use the code NEWSUBLOVE. So new SUB love at checkout, and you'll get 10% off your purchases. And I'll just put that in the chat box. So if have been waiting and you want that held, we do need to learn from history. Okay. Oh, we just taught my son how to dab. It was pretty cute. Okay. So if you're interested, I just put the promo in there, new sublub. There is also a notice with a link to the merch store in my community tab. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you do so. Also, make sure that you give this video a thumbs up. And if you have comments, questions, concerns, anything, leave the comments. You can also send me emails if you have tips, messages, DMs to Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. My messages from Instagram and Facebook are managed by Jesse and my husband. So if you can always send messages if there's things that you need us to know or suggestions for content. You can also tag me on Twitter or on Instagram if you see something. But I appreciate you guys all there. And this has been a great afternoon. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will be back later. Maybe tonight, I'm not sure. But I'm going to take some time off and try to relax. Bye, guys.